Hi, I'm here with James today. Hello, James.
Hi, Karen.
Yes, we're going to talk a bit about empaths, and there's some little bits up on the screen right now. I was really shocked. I grew up. An empath is just a highly sensitive person, and so forth, and you can feel other people's feelings. And then, by the time I did the video with the guy with the smiles, and then the bit about electromagnetic, all this, it all kind of ties into itself, I think. But I was like, listening to what people were saying, what an empath was. It's almost like you've got a condition that's not been, it's not in the books. So basically, you've got a spectrum here, and then when you think about the guy with the faces, and the autistic's more sort of, it's just, you can do arts, crafts, all these other things. I just think that empaths lean toward, and they're highly sensitive, and they lean towards that spectrum. But it's really strange to listen to it, that an empath was what it was all those years growing up, and now it's turned into someone who's got sort of a spectrum of something, and it seems to link towards autism. And then and when I was doing the thing about, I just thought it was all a bit weird, James. I just thought we were
Yeah,
sensitive people who could feel other people's feelings. Oh no, we're on a spectrum now, and that looks autistic. Bit weird.
it's always they've always got to give a categorisation and something that's then perceived as a negative label all the time with anything like this.
There's a lot of
Because
empaths. When we moment, I mean, I don't even think we have to be in each other's electronic fields, but that's the field around yourself. But we can
yeah,
zoom in. An empath will definitely spot another empath.
yeah, I would have thought it's to do with the frequencies and being if you're more sensitive, then you're going to feel it more.
Yeah, but James, okay, me and Amy, really good friends. She's an empath.
Yeah,
I can pick her because I've had 3, 4 years of friendship with her, right? There's
yeah,
nothing in our friendship which is about ego, about trying to destroy. It's all nurturing and caring and getting to know. And it's like that with
yeah,
Monique. It's like that with most people who are empaths. Mickey,
mm,
he's another one. Um,
yeah,
Gary's one. We don't want to hurt each other. And if there's any upset, the empath will help. And now
yeah.
suddenly we're classified. I just think, we've got tendencies, like there's something wrong with us, we just haven't said.
No, I don't think. I wouldn't say it in a negative way. But it's like everything. It's a gift, but it can also be a curse at the same time.
Well, we
Um,
kind of thought as time's gone on that they don't want people like us, because the people who are empaths are the awake people, for sure. I'm not saying not people who aren't empaths are awake, but the majority of empaths will be awake, and this will be horrible what's happening right now. Help me, save me from this place.
yeah, I think it's a feeling of where you just feel things aren't right, and it is an uncomfortable feeling, and it's like, well, this isn't the sort of world I want to live in the way it is.
Do you think you're an empath?
Not particularly an empath, I wouldn't have said. No, I do get um, images in the mind or feelings and things. It's not something I control. I get shown things, but it's not. I'm in control of it. I can just switch it on or off. I'm
So a
either
bit
shown something
psychic
or I'm
then, in
not.
a way. There must be psychic things for you.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, there's the other one that's often mentioned is Asperger's. Now, would you believe it's a Latin word that means something to do with purification? It's like, what are the chances that word's been
Well,
used again?
James, do you not listen? My bit before you carry on with your bit of talk, right? The way I've looked at it is that no matter where I went to look at pictures, they all had something wrong with their faces. So what it is I came across this guy, that guy with the smiles, and so really, when you look at any pictures or you look at people, they're going to have this stronger and weaker side, even if it's in their mouth or it's in their lips and their mouth. And it seems to
Yeah,
me that we have this hard, soft side. I've got a picture over there. She's 1800 and something. and she's got the same thing there, so it can't be anything new. And then when he was saying about this autism, because it's your stem cells, the stem injury. That's what it is, an injury there. I was thinking, well, does that happen when you're born, when you're created? But in it, his book is Man-Made Disease, so it sounds to me like it is obviously something they do to you. So it's been injections, hasn't it, for the little babies? So obviously that's where it is. But I don't know about that. I'm just thinking it's almost as if when a baby's born, its face must have had a stroke then.
Well, it seems
And
to
the
be
stroke
that
means it's
child.
stem cell damage to the left or the right. Everybody has it. And everybody is autistic or Asperger's spectrum, or Asperger's or autistic. Everybody is on a spectrum of one of them. Maybe there's more spectrums.
I think a lot of it is engineered in the way that childbirth is made as stressful and difficult as possible for both mother and child. I mean, it
Well,
makes perfect sense.
I wondered whether it was happening in birth, because that, they say when you're being born that it's the worst journey of your life. It's the most dangerous journey you'll ever make, because obviously being born, you're completely squished.
Well, not only that, you die.
What you mean when they cut the cord?
Yeah, your entire oxygen and food supply and everything is just suddenly clamped off.
Oh, so you die from one life into another. Oh, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Well, yeah. If you look.
Oh, thanks, James. Thanks.
If you look at a birth certificate, it says I think it's Registry of Births and Deaths, whereas the death certificate only says death on it. So and I mean, you think about it, it makes sense. You bring new life into the world, so you put it in the same building as people who are sick and dying. Not.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about that. What started it all was off for me was weeks ago. Oh, I saw this little video of a baby being born, but mostly when you see any film of a baby being born, the bag's broken around the baby. But this one, the bag came out with the baby, and I said to Amy, it looks like an alien. It just looks so different, the baby in the bag, like moving around. And then, of course, they broke the bag. But I just thought it looked different. And then that's what's led on through, the smile guy, the empaths, the electromagnetic field, which I think is really important, James, because, maybe that's what they're trying to destroy of everybody. Because that field, it connects with your heart, your organs. And then we know our heart does all these things. If you interrupt that, then you're going to make illnesses or kill the people.
Well, the key words.
Because we all know we've got an Sorry, James, I'm going to let you talk. Sorry, we've got an electromagnetic pulse in our brain and heart.
Yeah. The key word in all of this is connection and disconnection. You'll see this played out on YouTube, especially if you make certain connections between things. That's when you get strikes and whatever. But there's also the disconnect, which seems to be mandatory, shall we say? And that all seems to be the theme with it all: connection or disconnection, and maintaining a spiritual connection seems to be the very core of all of this.
You know what? They've shown us. I just think that every film that you've ever seen, from The Matrix, I don't know, all of them, Tron, Arnold, what was that one when he goes to Mars? Total Recall, you name it, there's loads of them. The Truman Family.
Yeah.
It's like every single film they've ever made, and we're living in that.
Well, it's the same in this material reality. It's a series of repeats, and repeat prescriptions. So it's prescribed. So, I mean, you could say at the moment you've got the replay of the story of Cain and Abel as Canada enabled. And then if you look at that from a sort of from a figurative higher perspective, as in i.e. Google Earth, you'll notice that you're getting clogged arterial roads. So they're giving you an out-of-body experience. They've given a lot of people the inner-body experience through the coercion, and now it's being played as an out-of-body experience, as it were. I mean, it's a repeat pattern. You've only got
Is this anything to do with the Is this anything to do with the meta stuff?
Bound to be tied into it as well. Like I say, all you've got to do is look over the last, say, 30, 40 years, anywhere in the UK and probably most of what they call the Western world, where the village was the heart and the life of the community, but then they put a bypass in. The justification for the bypass is something caused by the system with clogged up roads. So you've clogged up all the networks, so you put a bypass in, and then that destroys the heart of that community. And it's like, I can see the pattern to this. So they've turned that inward. And it seems, the way I see it, it's whatever is shown in a spiritual thing, they're playing out in a very physical, material sense, in a very twisted way with everything.
I've changed the picture now to spiritual.
Like I say, I don't, try and keep this to an hour because I'm struggling today.
Yes, that's fine, James.
I feel like I've had a rugby team sort of dive on my ribs.
Oh.
That's a chronic fatigue thing. That's all it is. It's just some days it's not very good, and other days I'm okay. But you can never know which day is going to be a good one and which one's going to be a bad one. This is the problem with it. So you go through this sort of phase where you're sort of angry at yourself to start with, because you think, well, this is stupid. I'm only X age and I should be able to do this, and then you get annoyed with yourself. Then you go through like a phase of depression with yourself, and it's a common thing anyway. And I think we've got F in the United States to thank for that.
Well, yeah, we're just going for a little bit longer. Sorry about that, James.
That's all right.
I think I'm always in that state, James, because I stay up late most nights.
Yeah, the sleep patterns as well is another thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think they say if you're tired, you're tired, but I think sometimes your brain is much more awake at night.
Yeah.
When it gets quieter, you're in your home, someone's doing something outside. It's not particularly noisy, but later on there won't be any noise, and that's the time I like.
Well, the amount of things that are whizzing through the air, as it were, like Wi-Fi signals, and they're passing through everything. They're invisible, but the world feels very different, like a very different frequency than, say, back in the 70s and 80s. And then there's all the...
Or listen, James, did it feel different because we didn't know this crap that we know now? Or was it different? Because we just didn't know this crap, so we were living it, and we were young enough to live it. Well,
we didn't have the accessibility to information that you've got now, and obviously with all the devices and things.
You mean so we can easily get on our phones? We had to write. I'd have to say, James, did you get my? I'd just write to you, and it would take you 3 or 4 days to get to you.
Yeah. Well, it seems almost laughable and seems so primitive compared to, because we sort of take this for granted.
It's not even that long ago, but my daughter and my kids won't remember letters, but it's only 20 years ago. We were at letter stage.
Well, at one time you had 3 postal deliveries in a day as well. If you were sending a letter locally within a town, it would get there within the same day. But obviously everything's been cut back. It's all about...
And a postage stamp's now like a present, like it's nearly £1 for a flipping stamp.
Yeah, that's incredible. I haven't I haven't written letters for I don't know how
If the
long.
postage stamps go up like this, James, because of petrol prices and stuff, our wages should match it.
Yeah, it's they didn't explain. I'm trying to think. It may well be over a decade ago now that they're saying Royal Mail was losing so many million a day, and then they put the postage up by a penny, and then all of a sudden they're making this huge profit. But it's like, well, that must be just commercial business post, because how many people write letters today compared to several decades ago?
Well, I don't.
The things, the story doesn't add up, does it?
No.
So I don't know what the answer is.
Probably been pushed into something else, haven't we? And then, it's like the lockdown. Now we've got to pay for it with all our prices of everything going up. Like, we didn't cause it. Boris caused it. They caused it. And now we've got to pay for it.
Well, it's a classic textbook narcissist. It's the love bomb is to give you the devices. The stonewalling is the equivalent of censorship. So it's the same pattern with everything. It's get you dependent on the thing. So you got people. It's like, oh, I need my phone. I can't live my life without my phone. It's got.
Mind you, it is a way of us communicating. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, because we need it to be able to communicate with each other. But you just mean you should be doing other things than having your head in your phone.
Well, there's also. I'm trying to think of the term for it. There's It's almost like an auto cue. If one person looks at the mobile phone, you watch the number of other people that they may have been talking to, and they're all checking the phone at the same time. It's like a response, like a conditioning. It's quite interesting to observe that one. But also, it's like it's also quite worrying. But it's almost like a very tiptoe effect of getting you used to interacting with machines, which is another ongoing theme at the moment with everything.
That's really mesmerised me a bit. I hadn't really thought about that the baby died to be born.
Yeah, until the doctor reanimates that baby. I mean, the lungs have never been breathing in air.
The other thing I noticed, James, was it's not every single baby, but lots of babies turn round months before they're born, and their head is so they're upside down, basically.
Yeah.
They don't come out going, "I've got a brain rush. I've got a brain rush."
No, it's well, you're in a fluid as well. But I go with the Rudolf Steiner explanation that we're four bodies in one. That being, you've got your physical body, you've got your etheric body, your astral body, and the eye organisation. So when you sleep, two parts stay here, and the other two parts go off and do whatever. Dreams seem like they've been going on for a long time, but it can be just a telephone ring, and that whole dream is constructed just from that exterior sound. That's how quick the mind actually works. Incredible, really. But what's also interesting that's played out physically, if you go up a mountain where the air is thinner, and then if you come back down, go too deep, then the pressure becomes too great, and then you come up, you get the bends. So it's all about staying on this sort of middle ground, as it were, even in a physical sense. You've got
but there's things they just don't tell you, do they? We should kind of realise. I suppose I just hadn't even thought about it like that. So we're inside our mother's wombs. We were amphibian.
Pretty much, yeah. It's said that a newborn baby, if you were to chuck them in a swimming pool, the lungs automatically shut off and they revert to sort of breathing liquid again and taking the oxygen that way. I mean, that is something that was shown. I can't think of the name of the film. Oh no, it's gone. But I remember in it one of the main actors in this character in this film. He has to drink this special fluid and remember how to breathe in water. It's a science fiction film.
Right.
I really can't remember the name of it now. Hello.
Right, I'm agreeing. Yeah, I'm listening. Right.
Sorry, I thought the signal had gone again. Then.
No, you got an echo that time, I think.
Oh right. Oh, it's just the internet being its usual stable self.
Yeah. If everybody doesn't realise, me and James were talking, and I actually said to you, "Oh, great, James, just hang on there," and you'd gone. We've had a connection problem already, so that's why James is saying, "Are you there?"
Yeah, because I thought it's suddenly gone quiet, and it's like, oh, and then it's like, the signal's gone.
No, because it just made me think a bit, really, about that bit about, I hadn't really thought about that, because it's on a totally different support system when it's inside the mother.
Yeah, well, this is, it's a 9-month process.
And do you know what they say? They say babies love being inside the womb. And even when it's squashed, they'd rather stay there than come out, and you're like, what? Well, they've got no room.
It's like a safe feeling, I suppose, cocooned.
And what state are they in then? Because they're cocooned.
Well, don't forget that at that stage, it's a baby's mind is totally in the subconscious. It's not had any experience of this external world. I mean, you look at a baby is just absorbing everything. That sort of childlike wonder at everything. There's no judgment. So if you were to go in the garden and see the first time in the garden, and you see a spider sort of webbing an insect, you wouldn't think, oh, that's horrible. You just observe it, totally impartial, because it's something new that you've never come across. It's the human body renews itself every 7 years. I mean, it's fair to say that a newborn baby and somebody in their 90s looks like a completely different creature. It's just a time frame.
I know, that's the other reason why people drink pee, isn't it? Because when you actually think about it, when that baby is in the sac inside the mother, then it's drinking, or its own pee is going through its lungs. It's just sterile.
Yeah, I make quite a good brew. I mean, I do.
Oh,
I do
James.
No, we've been conditioned to think that is bad for us. But it's actually the opposite. I mean, anything like that, if I drink it, I don't just swallow it down. I encode it with saliva. So I'm recognizing my own DNA again. I mean, that could actually be the answer to getting through everything. I mean, if you look at what Logical Annie channel is showing with what they're doing with the water in the Widnes area, I think it's sort of Manchester, Liverpool area, you've got one of the water companies is going around telling other water companies what not to do because it will be a disaster. And it's like, well, why are they doing that? And it does make you wonder. We're now in the year of the water tiger, the Chinese New Year. There's another sort of watery theme that's being played out. I would also say,
but that's this baby bit. So the baby is pee is going through its lungs. It's not breathing. Yeah. It's attached to another life support system, which I already know all this, but I hadn't really thought about it. You know, because it's being born. You know, that's the bit you get to. But actually, it's ending one life to have another. Yeah,
you've also got the membrane. You've got the umbilical cord and the sac, which is all part of that package. So it's all in the turbo
And if
body.
it had been anything else, your body would have
Well,
killed it. Well, that's why
no,
you get morning sickness, because your body wants to reject it, but it doesn't.
well, you've got loads of things going on in the human body. I mean, you actually create alcohol in the stomach, the lower stomach, but it doesn't come into contact with the brain. But it is to do with the digestive process. There are minute traces of loads of things in the body naturally, but they're not overloaded by ingesting them. I mean, the outer skin is your third kidney and your third lung, because the skin breathes. The sort of most earthly element of the human body is the bone, and that's the bit that's buried deepest within this sac we call a skin as well. It's surrounded in fluids and things.
Well, maybe that's where, like, someone that's an empath, some bond thing, when I don't know, it just doesn't ever sever.
Well, you've got what is going to be a big influence on things is the time of birth, because you've got a 9-month cycle. When, as a fetus, that fetus is drawing in the 12 salts. This is why the mother gets cravings for particular things, because, and this is why you've got certain star signs will love Marmite, other ones will be totally say horrible stuff. It's all to do with the salts, and I have asked a few friends whether they.
Oh, goodness gracious me! Someone's messaging. Carry on.
I was going to say, yeah, because you're Gemini, aren't you?
Unfortunately or fortunately, yeah.
So, do you like Marmite?
I like Marmite.
Yeah, because that's got the right salt in it for Gemini. It's a case of doing a little bit of digging on the internet, where it's got on the ingredients salt. It's then finding out which of the 12 salts is in the particular food, because you only do a 9-month cycle instead of a full year. You're 3 star signs short, as it were, 3 zodiac signs, which are tied to 3 different salts.
Mm.
So your body is sort of lacking, and will then have a preference to try and to source the foods with those salts in.
Don't you find it really strange that we're like computers? You already said that earlier on in the hangout, and this brain, which they can't say, there's no chip, so it's just, what do you call it? It's just the brain, and that stores, they think, all this information.
Well, you've got the interaction, and also don't forget the way humanity has changed. At one time, you would have breathed in knowledge. The lungs were far more important. That's now moved down to the kidneys, so it communicates with the subconscious. It's the most sensitive of the organs. So the communication is now slightly different. But the heart has actually got a cellular structure. It is actually a brain as well. So this is where the saying, like, the heart knows.
Mm. Well, the first thing probably to form in a body, really, was the heart.
Yeah. I mean, there's a misconception that it's a pump as well. It is not a pump, it's a regulator.
Yeah, I want to find that video, James. I can't remember whether you gave it to me or it was Amy or I found it, but it was this doctor, the doctor explaining, about what the heart is, and he's sitting there for about 15, 20 minutes talking.
Yeah, it's I can find it again and send you the links.
Oh, please, because I think I'd like to show that, because, why can't they ever tell us the truth?
Well, they do, but it's like everything. You've got to do a bit of digging to find it. The information is there, but they make it as difficult as possible to find.
Mm.
But basically, when the heart is healthy, because it folds over, it's called a Gothic arch. When the heart is unhealthy and starts to collapse, it's called a Roman arch. Would you believe? I mean, what are the chances?
Whoa, really?
Yeah, yeah.
It's all a bit, it's all a bit,
it gets
James, it's
better
all a
than
bit
that.
sick, isn't it?
It gets better than that. I was copying out a Latin text. Now, would you believe in Latin the word for hell is subtatara?
Really?
Yeah. I thought, cool. If you ever want to commit suicide,
So basically, Tartaria is hell. Yeah, I believe that now.
Well, it says no. It says subtatara. I think Tatara actually just means territory, personally. So it's below the, or it could just be another name for like terra, as in terra forma. So it means it's below it. Sub means below. So it's quite interesting looking at Latin and quite revealing what comes out of it. I was going to say, if you ever want to commit, if you're feeling suicidal, just read a Latin mass in English, and you definitely want to slit your wrists after reading one of those. Talk about make you feel insignificant and lowly. Oh, it's like, is this how they've done it? Brainwashing people into feeling self-loathing, basically.
Well, that's what they've done, isn't it? Anyway, that's what the narcissists come from.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is soul destroying for an empath.
Well, that's I think you said the key word there, soul destroying.
It is. And the thing is, the narcissist doesn't care and doesn't know and doesn't care.
Well, they've not got the
if you're a sensitive person, you need another or more sensitive people around you.
Yeah.
Because if you're an empath on your own, it's going to be hell.
Well, there's also the thing of opposites attract as well. So,
or as long as you can find someone, like you said, right, I'm not an empath, but, we talk about things and we talk about feelings and stuff. As long as you find someone that you can talk to. They might not believe in everything you do, but as long as you can talk to each other, that's a good step.
This is it, yeah.
I mean, James, where are they going to... If this is where we are now with everything, like even the bit with Boris and the parties and everything, what are they going to do next? It's just... Can't people wake up and see what's happening?
Well, I don't think they're meant to.
God, if you're locked into that and the television, you're just going to be exhausted. Because you won't know whether you're coming and going right now.
Well, it's giving off a signal, and it's giving off a frequency, and the psychology of the way news programs are put together, the order of the various stories, it's all very carefully worked out. It's sort of the world of psychology, as it were, which is it sort of leaves aside anything spiritual, and it's very materialistic. But I mean, people have said to me, "Oh, it's not real" or whatever. I said, "Well, okay." I said, "Well, show me the physical thing that is an emotion of anger or love." I said, "There's no physicality to it, but you know it's real because you feel it."
So obviously, you believe that you're a spiritual person.
Yeah. I'd say we've got that's one of our aspects. I mean, some people call it higher self, or a direct connection to source. The trouble with a lot of these things, it's so easy to get focused on the labels, but forget the labels. It's like, look at what the stories are saying. I mean, you can call it God, you can call it source, you can whatever. It's still basically describing the same thing.
Well, I think it's the one thing that's sort of slowly being taken away, because this realm that we're in doesn't want spiritual empaths.
No.
Psychic empaths or psychic people, spiritual people, awake people.
I personally feel that there's a stronger force, and if anything, you're getting more people who are starting to question things. They may not have much of they haven't gone down the route of looking into every conceivable conspiracy, but there's that feeling that something isn't adding up. That's a good sign. I mean, this whole convoy thing in Canada, I've heard various stories it's controlled or whatever, but if nothing else, those that are sort of there will at least see that what the media shows and what they see are two very different stories. So it will start to snowball. And
I think in America, the one thing they bet on there is that America is so big that each state has its own television sort of channels, and it's like each state is like a country. So they never sort of talk about, you know, if you're in California, you don't really know what's going on in New York because everything concentrates on California. So they kind of know that you're never going to go there.
We've also got the time difference as well between the east and the west. It's what, something like 4 or 5 hours, I believe. I might have got that wrong, but there's definitely more than a few hours time difference because this all came out with the presidential elections.
Well, it's more than 3. Oh, because you've got Hawaii in there as well.
Yeah.
So that would be 5, maybe 6.
You've got the eastern.
Yeah, there's Amy's 5 hours behind me, and then obviously it's 3 more hours to California.
Yeah.
Or 2, 3, then you're at California, and then there's got to be 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 hours between America and Hawaii.
Yeah. The concept is very different of driving down the road. It's like 12 hours. I mean, you go from the tip of Scotland down to Cornwall in that time.
But we're bigger than they say we are. You know, we're longer than Spain. We're longer than France. They make us look like this tiny little blip on a map. We're bigger than they say we are. We're not as long as Italy. Italy's longer. Can you believe that? Italy's longer than us.
It's strange. You've got to factor in conditions of road and road speed, but from truck driving days, it took me the full 9 hours to go from Aberdeen to Liverpool, but that's at 50 miles an hour. So,
you know, if I wanted to go to the tip of Scotland, okay, it's in Scotland, but it's still part of the British Isles. You know, right at the top on the right-hand side. It could take me 8 to 10 hours to get there from here. I'm sort of, I'm inland.
It depends where you go and whether there's a direct road to it, especially when you get to the most rural parts in the very north. Same as Finland and Sweden and Norway at the very north. Often the roads are having to follow land formations, so there isn't actually a direct road. So that you'd have to factor that in to sort of try and work out scales.
And don't forget, England's lying on its side a bit, so it's not. To be honest, the travelling's not going to be. It's not like you're going straight up. You're driving actually to the left, really, and you don't realise it. Well, that's a bit bizarre. And then I don't know. I just think. I've asked loads of people, like, when they go up north. I think I might have asked you, when you went up there, do you feel like you're driving up or down? And they all say they feel like they're driving down.
Yeah.
What is that about, James?
Certainly, from the M25 going up the M1 until you get to about Yorkshire, it looks as if you're going downhill the whole time. You do get some uphill bits, but generally the view is as if it's falling away from you.
Isn't that weird? So what, is the middle of England below sea level then?
I don't know.
And then, of course, you're one of the people that's been on the tallest part of England, aren't you, James? And we were in a cloud.
Yeah, up level with them, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny because with a coach, it's 100 kilometres or 62 miles an hour. It was something like 500 just over 500 kilometres from Calais to Paris, and it was another 700 and something kilometres down to Lyon. That was only 3/4 of the sort of way. It hadn't reached the Spanish border at Lyon. And yet at the same time, I've also gone from Munich with a coach, being there in midday and then being back in the UK and back at home at 8:30 in the evening. So some of it is going to be the factor of the road network and how direct the roads are.
But I had that crazy plane flight to Holland, and what it was is I went from Southend, and they said it was going to be an hour and 10 minutes, and we did it in 35 minutes, and
that seems bizarre.
And we didn't go that high, although it was a jet plane, but it was a propeller jet plane, so it was like getting on one of the other ones, but a bit smaller, and
what they call it, a turboprop.
I don't know, it's a jet plane, and the propeller things in your camera made me laugh because they're all bending. I'm thinking if it was really like that, I wouldn't get on the plane. And then I realised that journey. I realised how low the clouds were. They seemed even lower over Holland. And then she actually said something like we're 35 minutes early, but when we landed, she said, "Oh no, we're actually 40 minutes early." And you think, how can you make up 40 minutes on an hour and 10 journey?
That does seem bizarre. And
it's about 300 and something miles away, you know, like from Southend up, because, you know, going from the bottom of England to sort of the top of Holland.
Yeah, it's a very strange sort of overestimation on journey time.
Yeah, I thought it was bizarre. The video is on one of the channels. I can't remember which one, but it is on one of the channels.
I do remember watching that.
Yeah, it just blew my mind a bit. Like, there was no explanation. She just said, "Oh, the winds were good today," but as if it's that. Well, maybe we're on a good loop, James.
It could be. I know when I came back from Sweden, and I thought, I recognise the M23, and I thought, hold on a minute, we're coming in way too fast here. The next thing, we're climbing again. It took an hour to circle to come back round to Gatwick again. They would have overshot the runway. I don't know what had happened, but the approach was way too fast, and you could feel the fear in everybody going up on the plane. It was hilarious in a way.
Sometimes though, they do that because the winds are strong and they have to go in fast, because that happened when I went to Edinburgh. It was horrific. There's hardly anybody on this plane, but the stewardess was sitting in front of us. And I'm going, why is that? She said, because it's so windy, we've got to go in this steep. I was thinking, I just want to land.
It's a strange thing, because certainly on the M23, you do see the planes going over. They think, crikey, that's low.
Well, I've even done that bit about those contrails. You know, it was Scarab. You know, he's showing those contrails that looked weird. They're supposed to be water, but they just look like they're in another dimension or something. I don't know. They're weird.
Yes, all rather odd.
Yeah.
Ether, basically. I mean, well, it's even like communication, like speech. It's a vibration that interferes with the ether. That's all it is.
Our childhood wasn't like this. It had Batman and Robin. Everybody else was the goodies doing it.
Yeah.
You know, people like, it's really weird, but maybe that's waking up, you know. I used to think, Tom Hanks, he should be president. And, you know, you used to look up at Captain Kirk. And now you just think, oh, my God. I just think Tom Hanks, all he does is laugh. That's it. He just makes stupid jokes and is some kind of CGI thing.
I can't watch anything anymore.
I can't. I just can't. It just annoys me.
You sort of see and hear things in a very different way than before. You can't actually just watch a film to be entertained anymore. Those days are gone.
I've been watching Eyes That Can See, and he started to speak on his videos. He just sounds so miffed off. Because once you really see what's going on in it and you think that's what they're doing to us, it just makes you angry. I mean, sometimes I run out of words to say because I don't know how to explain it anymore. I mean, how many more times do we have to see the problems? But that's all I can do. We've got no one to go to. It's not like there's some organisation we can go, you can help us. Quick, everybody, come over here. They can help us. We've got no one to help us, no one to go to. And we end up just making videos about it because that's all we can do.
Well, I think, personally, I feel what's actually happening is it's a spiritual evolution of humanity. And like they tell us with evolution, you have two species that coexist for a certain amount of time, and then one will go extinct. And I feel this is basically what's happening. It's an upgrade. Because, I mean, you think about it, with the devices and the material world, you get like a phone, and then you get upgrades to things. And it's like everything that is given to us in the material world seems to be based on something spiritual, but very twisted in, but the pattern is the same.
Personally, James, I just like them to leave us alone.
Well, I
Well,
don't
it's a
think
bit
they
like,
can.
I know this sounds a bit like OTT, but it's a bit like, okay, you'll give us that country. Okay, never come and see us again. You do all your killing, lying and everything over there and leave us in peace. But you wouldn't see your families, would you? That would be it, really. You'd be moving there on your own.
I think if you look at it in terms of someone who's...
James, it's utter madness what they've got us in. It's utter madness. It's just madness.
If you look at the sort of pattern, the wealthier people get, the more they're then having to live in gated communities, and they're fearful of losing the things. And I think it's basically a very extreme version of this, to the point where even if they've got sufficient, it's still not enough. It becomes like a drug. And it's to the point where they daren't let anything slip. But I feel that everything in this realm is subject to terms and conditions. So terms.
You know, we've done a bit of research together, you and me. We did the Victorian pictures when maybe you might not have seen it the same, but with me, you saw it. You saw that there was all these different eras together, and there was no safety, no nothing. There's just, and then the pictures didn't look right. So you know, don't you, James? You know it's all naff.
Well, some of the things just seem so incredible. Like the whole story of the airships. It's not just the airship. It's not just building an 800-foot long airship. You've then got to have a structure to construct it in, which is going to be bigger. You've then got all the logistical problems if you've got to have mooring points in South America. You can't just suddenly come up with an airship and say, right, we're going to fly it from this country to that country, and the other country doesn't know anything about it. It just doesn't. It just doesn't gel. It doesn't feel right, any of the stories with anything. When you sort of leave aside all the things that have been told, and then you start comparing and making connections, it's like, well, if this was happening with this particular topic, and hold on, how can that be going on simultaneously? And it's like, hold on, nothing is adding up.
And don't forget, in a way, they keep talking about all these towns, like some of the Tartarian stuff left. It's like it's almost been made, but it wasn't made to live in.
Well, again, I'd go with the whole thing that the way Rudolf Steiner talks about it, the frontal cortex, which is the intellect, is a very recent development that started in sort of around 1450-ish. Now, if you've got a very different type of humanity that has ancestral memories, not just a lifetime memory back to childhood, but you can draw on memories of previous generations, you can build things to the same style quite easily, but you wouldn't have anything new like cunning or deceit or guile, you'd have no defense against something like that. So it would be very easy to destroy an entire civilization by introducing something that's very different. It's like well, like you said earlier. We
Well,
wouldn't have thought of
James, when you were
it
just
before.
talking about that, Marie Wheatley said that at a time the elongated-headed people were here first. We did marry them, and then somehow we seemed to kill them off, or we lasted longer than them.
Quite possibly.
So I thought they wanted to get rid of those because they have more chakras, which might be where the empaths come from.
Well, I think this is partly observation deck has alluded to this, and I think he's got a good point. You look at something, a nocturnal animal like a wombat, they've got very big eyes. Now you look at your classic alien, and they're hairless, they've got very big eyes, and they'd need the right conditions, not the conditions of bright sunlight and being above ground. Then when you think about the stories we're told about the American tribal people who said, oh, we were taken below ground and lived underground while this catastrophe was going on, it's like, hang on, there's something to this. I mean, I said on my last video, it may be just a faction of this underground group. I mean, terms and conditions, well, why is it that everybody goes, all these politicians and things go to the Antarctic? And then also...
Well, that's what they're telling us, James.
Yeah, but the Alps, Switzerland, would have a similar conditions to the Antarctic. And you've also, another country that's not mentioned is Liechtenstein, which means bright stone, and it's 64 square miles. Now, it's talked of as this being like a checkerboard, which is 64 squares. It's like, what are the chances? I mean, I said the whole eyes of the world need to be looking at the Alps, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. It's a centre of European culture, but what type of culture are we talking? The sort of culture that's in a petri dish. How can a little country have so much wealth? And you think about it, Switzerland, it's almost like the origin of the
And
word.
don't forget, they've got that horrible train there where they had that horrible dance with the goat.
Yeah.
And Cern's there.
Also, names like Heinrich Himmler, Hermann Göring, I can't think of the other ones. They're all of Swiss descent. And of course, Switzerland supplies the guards to the Vatican. Switzerland is also the home of cuckoo clocks. So you've got the time thing and things being cuckoo. They're also famous for the Toblerone, the triangular chocolate bar. And if you look at the mountain logo, it's got a bear in that logo. It's like a bare-faced lie right in plain sight. I mean, why you've got this triangular-shaped chocolate? It looks a very odd shape to even manufacture. It doesn't look practical. And even within those little triangular sections, you've got the nougat. It's almost like a layer of gold. And again, history as well. It's as plausible as Swiss cheese. It's full of holes. I think some of these things are shown.
1 second, James, 1 second.
But you had this megalomaniac called Adolf Hitler who was determined to take over the entire world, but he forgot about one of the neighbouring nations. I mean, if there's all these things that were supposed to have gone on that subsequently have brought about the Nuremberg trials and then things called human rights, and there was nothing respected on anything like that, then why would someone who's this megalomaniac dictator respect neutrality of any country? Sweden was
it's got a prince, this one. Prince, I can't even say his name, Liechtenstein. He is
Yeah.
the one that runs the country, and it does say there the country is the world's richest country per capita. What do you call it? Capita.
Per
Uh,
capita. Yeah.
Driven by the how like it's just what you said.
It's peculiar. How can a country that small, um, in today's world, stay independent? And surely it can't. It couldn't support itself on its own natural resources.
German
It
is
must be just
spoken there. German.
Yeah, it must be on the sort of accumulated wealth.
1 second, James. 1 second. So there it is there, and I think that's Italy there. That's Italy, and so and it's next to Switzerland, so it's in the Alps. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fairy tale,
so
isn't it?
by.
It's fairy tale.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's like Luxembourg is another one that is never mentioned either. Again, very wealthy, but you never hear about it on the news. It's like, what goes on in these countries?
The UK looks quite big on this map.
Yeah.
It does, James. It really does. It's not lying on its side though, but it looks wealthy. It's all Tartarian-like, all old buildings and castles and fairy tale.
I can't remember the colour of the flag of Liechtenstein, but I think.
Oh, I've just seen it. It's red and blue.
Ah. Well, then you've got your divine masculine, divine feminine showing in the red and the blue, the veins and the arteries, or the arteries and the veins. Old, it's all. It all seems to tie in. And there's a whole big tones and colours, so we could go into, but I'm not feeling the best today. But
lots of little countries around there, then.
Yeah, and Monaco is another one.
Yeah.
It's like the eyes of the world need to start focusing on these little countries with this extreme wealth, and it's like, I'm sure there's more goes on there than we ever know about. Belgium is another one. There's some funny things that are supposed to go on there.
Yeah, and also when I looked them up, it was about how they defended themselves at the same time as everyone else. They had some amazing guns in Belgium. Whatever they were protecting themselves with, the complexes, they were far more advanced than everybody else's.
It's strange with Belgium because you've got that split in the language as well. You've got the Wallonian French-speaking part and then the Flemish-speaking part. Logically, it would have been easier to split the country in half and give part to France and part to the Netherlands, but it makes you wonder why these countries even exist.
So was this place neutral in the Second World War?
Which one? Liechtenstein?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah. I think it's very much like Switzerland in that sense. Well, 64 square miles, you're not going to... I think the Swiss Air Force...
Imagine what they use them for. We can go there to these places because they're neutral.
Well, you can drive through Liechtenstein in about an hour. It is absolutely tiny. It's so tiny. I have been through it.
Right. Well, it looks like fairyland to me.
It's just so odd that these little countries are overlooked. There's probably other ones as well.
Jersey. I know they're islands, but they're small. Guernsey.
Yeah. Offshore, renowned for offshore accounts as well and tax dodges, tax havens.
No, James, you didn't want to go much more than an hour. We've been going for an hour. Do you want to finish off the hangout?
It's basically chronic fatigue syndrome. I get this some days. I feel like I've been jumped on by a load of rugby players on my ribs. Actually, I feel like feel bruised.
Oh.
The thing is, you never know one day from the next how you're going to be. It's only on the day you think, oh, it's going to be one of those days, and various factors. So it's working. Well,
you did pretty well, James. You made me think.
Oh, thank you. this is the thing. I forget the name of the channel, but I think they've hit the nail on the. I was going to mention it on the next video. I think it's called Nature's Realm. I haven't got it written down handy. But basically, I think the giveaway was in what this lady said. We're going into something that this spiritual awakening is beyond human imagination. So the answer to that says to me, then all we need to do is expand our imagination. I mean, what is the limit of your imagination? It's all about potential, expanding the mind, expanding consciousness. So I feel that is the answer.
Yeah.
It is all to do with this, pushing the boundaries. And that's another theme that's been played out. I mean, nature does not respect boundaries like garden fences or national borders. And this thing that is supposed to be so deadly around the world, that obviously doesn't respect any boundaries, be it family, nations, but yet they can predict which day next week they can have a lockdown.
All the weather. All the weather's another one they can predict.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is, James. It is incredible.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, when you said earlier, it's like we never thought of that. Well, that's the whole thing. We've been sort of programmed to think in a certain way, and it goes back to the school days. Oh no, we've got to stick to the syllabus. You're asking too many awkward questions.
You know something? I've probably told you this, but it's another thing. Like when a baby girl is being made in her mum's womb, every single egg that she's ever going to produce is made then when you're pregnant when your mum's pregnant with you.
Ah. I think you may have said this before. Well, that does. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, everything has its place here, doesn't it? You know, I mentioned it in another video. The animals, they don't question what they've got to do. More than likely, it's to have a baby and whatever. But they're so into their, what do you call it? It's all intuitive. They've got their modes and everything. The humans are the same, except our brains seem a bit more expanded. That's all.
Well, there's one very distinct difference between humans and animals, and that is our spine is upright. All the nerve endings that run up and down the spine with an animal.
Yeah, of course, the cows, they go across, yeah.
Yeah, it's a greater surface area that is exposed to the astral and the astral influences. This is why, because I said, why is it you never see a bird drop dead in mid-flight, generally? Why do elephants know when it's time to die? It's because they're very thick-skinned, and so the penetration of the astral influences is different.
I saw a video today, James, about a bird that was stuck up in the air, and they were trying to poke it out the sky, and it just got stuck there.
Got stuck in the sky?
Yeah, it wasn't flying or anything. It was it could have been a dove, it was a pigeon or a dove, and its wings were up, and it was just stuck there. But you never know whether the video is meta, do you? You just know it's not real.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I could think that you could put that down to is picking up on warm air currents, and it's just using.
No, it looks like it's a picture stuck on a video, that kind of thing. It's like
probably is.
But I mean, we don't. Do you know what? It's amazing. We don't really understand any of the place we live in. We just don't, or ourselves.
I was going to say we don't even understand ourselves. You think from the moment of birth, once you're reanimated, the heart is just doing, and all the organs are just getting on with it. You don't have to consciously think.
Yeah, you don't even feel it.
No, it just runs automatically, and that is incredible in itself. To me, that says intelligent design behind it all. it's sort of things we take for granted, and we don't look internally at ourselves enough, because it's said in spiritual terms about go within for the answers, and it's like a lot of these things seem to be firewalled off, but they are within inside us. It's a bit like
Everything's inside you, James.
Well, yeah.
They've made sure that we're looking outside for everything. I mean, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Do you live inside out or outside in?
I tend these days to live more inwardly, to be honest.
Yeah, I live inside out. That's how we all should be. We're living inside our bodies. Our bodies are our home.
Yeah. Well, it's described as a vessel, and you're captain of that vessel.
Ship. Oh, dearie me.
Well, we are. You can sort of see where the material world has based itself. I mean, if you think about, if you look on the internet for pictures of the roof of the mouth, and then you look at a roof of a cathedral, and then you think about a cathedral has many windpipes and one organ. We have many organs and one windpipe, and it's sound vibration again.
Everything's so linked, isn't it, James, in one way or another?
Yeah. Well, the origin of the architecture, I would say, therefore, is based on the human body, on physiology.
We're stuck on castles in, what was that place again? Liechtenstein. We're stuck there on the fairy castles.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course, yeah. We've got all these Mad King Ludwig of Bavaria's castles. That one of them even is the sort of the Disney logo that is supposed to be.
Yeah, they look a bit. This one looks a bit like it's Disneyland in stone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but
yeah, James, they've got a crown in the blue bit, and they're blue and red. Yeah, well, we know what they can keep that. We know what we think about it all. But should we finish then, James? Because we've been going for over an hour now.
Yeah.
It's always interesting talking to you, James. You've made me think a bit today. Well, there's always thinking, isn't it? You just got to be thinking all the time.
I don't switch off, but it's not like I'm looking for stuff. Things seem to pop into the mind, and it's like, the other day it was something I saw, and then I saw it was 222 and 88% on the phone. I thought, the fact that I've been alerted and something that's got my attention to see that is now telling me that I need to look at more deep. I forget what it was now, but I know what it was. It was the convoy in Canada, and I thought, Cain and Abel, Canada enabled. And because the whole story of that is one brother being jealous of another brother, but still being subservient to some fictitious, vengeful deity that is still sort of under control of something. So maybe we can untwist this strip so brother is not fighting brother and is not being subservient to some thing that set itself up as God.
Have you noticed everything's changing though, James? All our history's changing. It's just changing.
Yeah. It seems almost like a matrix in a way. I do wonder if we have done some sort of time jump, say 2 years ago. The saying is, be careful what you wish for, and I'm as guilty of it, and I'm sure you are. We don't like the way the world is. We want it to change. Well, we got that, didn't we? Not the way we wanted, but we did get change.
Do you think that was when they put they went digital? Because digital's all about numbers.
Could well be, but I also see from that, if we can collectively change things, we can change things again. Between us, I think
the power needs to be rectified for the people.
Yes, definitely. For the people, by the people, as it were.
Yeah, like now.
Well, that's all there is, really. There is only now. Anyway.
Yes,
I'm starting to...
Yeah, you're still starting to make the conversation last longer, and he's wilting away in the chair, aren't you, James?
I'm indestructible, I'm internal, but I need to rest.
Yeah, don't go. We'll say goodbye after the hangout, but thanks very much for that, James. Thank you, James. And chat room.
Thank you, chat room.